day's a chance to change somebody else's life. Let's all do something good today.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dad Does Dinner. I'm Chase and so glad you can join me today for a Sunday pot roast. The popularity of Dad Does Dinner has increased exponentially and viewership has grown far and wide. I now have more YouTube subscribers than I do fingers and toes. How about that? I'm even getting constructive viewer feedback. For example, my brother just wishes my videos were shorter, and the mother of one of my viewers says she wishes I wouldn't look like I was cooking in my pajamas and my counters had too much stuff on them. I've got good reason for my choice of casual wear and counter clutter. You see, I know you're at home sitting on the couch in your sweatpants, eating Doritos and binge watching Tiger King. And when you flip over to one of my videos, that you want to be relatable to the person on the screen. That you want to look at me and know that you could do that in your own kitchen. I mean, if I came in here with my designer wear and my impeccable looking kitchen, looking like the TV star that I am and you're not, you might not relate to me as well. But today, I decided to clean up a little bit. So Mama Q, this one's for you. So today we're going to be braising our Sunday pot roast. I have here a 2 3/4 pound boneless chuck roast that I'm going to start by liberally seasoning with salt and pepper. Now I've had this sitting out for about an hour trying to bring the chill off of this because we're going to sear this roast. When you sear something, you definitely want the chill taken off of it so you have less chance of steaming your roast and you're not going to be able to brown it as successfully. So we put just a healthy amount of salt and pepper. It's also important to pat this roast dry, get all the moisture off of it that you can. So I got a good amount of salt and pepper on here, and now I'm going to lightly dust this in some flour. You don't want too much flour here, just a light dusting, and this will really help you create those brown bits that are full of flavor when you go to deglaze the bottom of the pan. It's important to get your pan to the right temperature when searing meat. You know, often I hear my TV co-stars say you want a screaming hot pan, turn your stove all the way up to high. I don't know what kind of equipment they're working with. When I do that, I turn that up to high. It takes about 37 seconds for anything I put in it to turn instantly to charcoal. So mine, I turn up to about medium high. Meat will sear at any temperature between 300 degrees and 500 degrees. You do want this closer to 500 degrees. Any hotter than that, and you go from searing the meat to burning the meat. You may remember your grandmother saying we sear the meat so we can seal in the juices. This is kind of a myth. Actually, when you sear meat like this, you're expanding those protein cells. And believe it or not, a non-seared piece of meat will be juicier than a seared piece of meat. This is going to have plenty of juices in it though. After we sear this meat, we're going to braise it. Now, braising is a process that's done in hot liquid, and it breaks down the collagen that's in the meat and it turns it from collagen to gelatin. When choosing a piece of meat to braise, you do want a piece of meat with lots of interconnective tissue. Almost any type of roast you see in the store will work. A brisket flat will work. Also, ribs work real well in a braise. I'm going to check the temperature of our pan. That's right at 475 degrees. That's a perfect temperature for us to sear. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of canola oil, and then I'm going to carefully add my meat. Now the key here is patience. This is going to take probably 3 to 4 minutes per side. If I check it too early, I'm going to interrupt that process and it's not going to sear properly. What we want here is a deep golden brown on all sides of our meat. This is called the Maillard effect. That's named for a French scientist who in 1912 was doing some protein synthesis experiments and he described this process. All right, it's been just over 3 minutes, so we're gonna see what we got. It's coming right up. And then take a look. That is the color we're looking for. I'm gonna flip it over, do it on the other side. That releases nicely. Once again, we have this good golden brown, and I'm gonna go ahead and sear the sides of this too. I'm just gonna hold it with my tongs. Now at this point, the cooking process has already started, so this isn't going to take long to do on each side. Probably 45 seconds to a minute per side. All right, we're just finishing up our sear on all sides. This looks really great. I'm going to remove it from the pan. Right away, I'm going to add a whole onion and bell pepper. I've cut these into about 1.5 inch chunks. I just want to get these sweating a little bit, and anytime I'm sweating vegetables, I add salt. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of color on these. Now I'm going to add 2 carrots cut into 2-inch pieces and 2 parsnips. If you've never used a parsnip before, it's a root vegetable. It's a lot like a carrot that's a little sweeter and denser, and also has the earthiness of parsley to it. So we're just trying to build flavors here. And then finally, I'm going to add a whole clove of garlic. I separated my garlic pods. I gave them a light smash, peeled them, and now they're going in mostly whole. When we remove the meat, we left a lot of flavorful brown bits in the bottom of the pan. So we want to do what's called deglazing. Deglazing can take place with any type of liquid, water, broth, or in this case, red wine. So I've got about a 1/2 cup of red wine. And as that liquid goes in, I'm going to take my wooden spoon and I'm going to pull those brown bits off the bottom of the pan. And we're really building some flavor. If you don't want to use wine, feel free to use beef broth here. I've turned my heat down to a medium-low, and now we're going to really start building some flavor. I've also started to preheat the oven to 275 degrees. Now, Reed Drummond and Alton Brown are often in my living room, and I really like how they do roasts, and I borrowed a little bit from one and a little bit from the other, added my own flavors to it. With a pot roast, just about anything goes. You need vegetables, you need flavor, and you need a braising liquid. I like a combination of sweet, savory, and a little bit spicy. So I've got a tablespoon of brown sugar, soy sauce. If I've got fresh thyme, then I'll throw in 4 or 5 sprigs of fresh thyme. In this case, I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme. And now I'll add a 1/2 cup of roughly chopped dried apricots. Any dried fruit that you like will work here. And if you don't have any dried fruit, I've used fig preserves, apricot preserves, anything to add kind of a fruity sweetness to it. This will really help when you're making your gravy out of this. Because I like it a little bit spicy, I'm going to add a whole chipotle. Anytime you're doing any type of braise, you need some acid in your braising liquid, and that helps break down the collagens. I've got 6 grape tomatoes here that are just at the end of their shelf life. I'm going to throw those in. And then also for richness and acidity, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Now we'll give this a stir. So far I have the liquid from my wine and the natural juices that have come out of the vegetables, and it's starting to make a nice gravy in the pot. And I know I'll need 2 to 3 cups of beef broth. I'm going to go ahead and add about a cup right now to help all of this come together. Homemade beef broth is even better. Of course, the box works just fine. This already smells deep and rich. And I'm going to let this come to just a light simmer. I'm going to give it another stir. And now I'm going to add our roast. So lay the roast in. When braising, you don't want to cover your meat completely in liquid because then that becomes boiling. So I'm going to add enough beef broth until it comes just to the top of the roast. If you are using a homemade broth here and you pulled it out of the refrigerator, at least bring it up to room temperature, if not warm it a little bit, because you don't want to add the cold broth to the hot pot. So now that I've added the broth, I'm going to turn my heat back up to a medium high. I want to quickly bring this to a simmer, but not to a full rolling boil. So this has come to a light simmer. I'm going to cover this and put it in the oven. It's a 275 degree oven. This is going to take somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. You want this to become just fork tender. Any more than that, and you'll actually start drying out the meat. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Mike and the crew at One Arm Brewing and Barbecue. That's a mini micro brewery and barbecue joint in San Angelo, Texas, home of the all-you-can-eat endless sausage platter. Mike and his crew do a lot of good work for the community there in San Angelo, Texas. Just the other day, had a free salsa giveaway. And that grilled salsa, it is something special. Hope you saved me some, Mike. The outbreak of the coronavirus has had far-reaching effects to all our lives to some extent or another. Don't forget to take time to give somebody a smile. Do something good for somebody else. So whether you're celebrating Easter, Passover, or just having some quiet time to yourself, don't forget to be grateful for what you have in your life. Find gratitude in everything you do. I'm going to do a quick and easy dish of rice and vegetables to go with our roast. In my pan, I've got 1.5 tablespoons of butter, a diced carrot, and half a diced onion. Just when my vegetables start to soften, I'm going to add a cup of rice. I spread the rice out evenly in the pan, let it set for a minute, just till it starts to brown. Just when the rice starts to turn brown, I'm going to add the rest of my vegetables. This is a great way to add vegetables that are in your crisper, ready to be eaten. In this case, I've done a rough chop on some cauliflower and some squash. After about another minute in the pan, I add the cooking liquid. In this case, I'm using beef broth. This will help echo the flavor of the roast. And because I have vegetables in with my rice, I don't need quite as much liquid as I normally would. So normally this would be 2 cups of liquid. In this case, I'm doing about 1 2/3 cups. Go ahead and turn my heat up to high, and I want to bring this to a boil. While waiting for this to boil, I'm going to check the roast. Oh, it's looking good. I think probably another 30 minutes on this roast. This has just come to a boil. I'm going to reduce this down to a very low heat, cover, and simmer. After 15 minutes, I didn't need to add any more liquid, so I gave it another 5 minutes. So now let's see what we look like. And there's no liquid left in the bottom of the pan. That's just what I want. Now I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of frozen peas. Cover, let the steam from the rice cook those. I'll fluff this right before we're about to eat. Just pulled our roast out of the oven after 3.5 hours. I can just insert a fork into it and start to pull it apart, so it is done. All right, here you can see that where the sections were joined by the larger pieces of connective tissue that dissolved away, and so this came out in several different sections. It's tender, it smells great. Now I'm gonna cover this and make the gravy. I made sure to remove my rosemary stem. Also, if you use a bay leaf in this, make sure you pull that out too before you make the gravy. For the gravy, I like to simply take an immersion blender, put it in, and blend all of this up. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can carefully ladle this into a regular blender. If you do that, make sure you put a towel over the top and not the lid, otherwise that lid will pop off. So all of those vegetables are nice and soft. The carrots and the parsnip kind of act as a thickener to this. All right, this is rich, smooth, and creamy. Oh, that's really good. You can really taste the vegetables. It's got a little bit of sweetness from that fruit and brown sugar, and just the right amount of smoky spice from that chipotle. Let's fluff the rice. Look how colorful the rice looks. Now we are ready to plate and serve. All right, I got everything on the plate. I always add a little parsley to make it look like I know what the hell I'm doing. Now let's give it a taste. That meat is moist, tender, full of flavor. What really makes it is that rich gravy. Now let me try the rice. Adding broth to your rice really makes all the difference. That rice is full of flavor. It's got kind of that beefiness that echoes our pot roast, the fresh vegetables, and the way we cook those peas right there at the end, they still have a nice little pop to them. This is a great meal for your Sunday dinner. Hope you enjoy. We'll see you next time.
A friendly smile's a tiny price to pay. Let's all do something good today.